evening. Good evening. I'm so excited. This will be my first bedtime book review. So as you can see, got the little robe on or whatnot, hair wrapped up, ready to get into it with you guys. So first books that I want to review are going to be Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas, alongside the second one in the series, A Court of Mist and Fury. So these are two books. I started reading them, got introduced to it via TikTok. Um, and let me just put this out there. So, old girl on TikTok was just like, "Oh, it's gonna have your heart and your kitty thumping, right?" So I was like, "This is what I need in my life at this point. Like, I need some action, right? Like, wasn't getting no action, so like, I need some action. Get my imagination running." Um, and a good read. I mean, I love to read. I love books of all genres, like different authors, new authors, and so this was my first introduction to Sarah J. Maas. So I was like, say less. Let me go run to Target and get it real quick, and that's what I did. And so I read this first one back in October. It was a great, pretty quick read for me. What I am gonna say is that sis kind of lied on TikTok though. Like, it had my heart thumping a little bit, but like the kitty part, not so much. And that's coming from somebody, y'all, that grew up on Coldest Winter Ever. That grew up reading Zane books. That grew up on Eric Jerome Dickey. Okay? This isn't quite this wasn't giving that. So if you're looking for, Zane level eroticism, no. This is cute. It's some little cute scenes in here or whatnot, muscles and sweat, and she gives very good imagery with her writing. But it didn't have a kitty thumping. It didn't. Not for me anyway. But it is, I would consider it in the fantasy genre. It's based on, like these made up lands, these creatures called fairies, who can turn into different animals and things like that. They can fly, superpowers, supernatural powers, things like that. But they have interaction with the human world. So that was very, interesting to me, like, get outside of the box a little bit. I like fantasy. I unfortunately or fortunately, I wouldn't know. I wasn't into Harry Potter, but Lord of the Rings was my thing. So this is very similar to that, someone's made up world where they are creating the storyline. And of course, the storyline involves love and war, because what wouldn't a good story, you can't live life without love and war, right? So thoroughly enjoyed it. The main character here, Feyre, really interesting character. I love how Sarah paints her as this dynamic person who's like, of course, strong, independent, making things happen about her business, taking care of her family. But then also, she got needs, right? So, like sexual needs, she's attracted to, this one guy who fulfills this specific need. And then she's introduced into this new world, Prithian. And so definitely I loved going on the journey with her, as far as, her being this strong, independent um, human woman thrown or thrust into this world by her actions, and her falling in love, with this world, outside of everything that was normal to her, right? Like, she grew up thinking that all of these creatures were evil, that they meant them no good, that they lived differently. It was all almost cult like the humans that did believe in these fairies, or these godlike creatures, similar to kind of like Greek mythology. Like, different gods, different powers, different areas. They do have courts in this particular book. In the Prithian world, they have like courts based off of the season. So like winter court, summer court, spring court, day court, night court, which was really cute to me. And I really enjoyed that aspect of it, just because the imagery, right? So, like spring court, you can imagine. She's talking about like how it's endless springtime. So, like, the sun is always shining, it's always balmy and breezy, the flowers are always in bloom. So, it was just very great imagery, great imagery. for the book. And I loved again how she built us up, to Feyre falling in love, with the prince, as well as talking us through just kind of everything that was going on in her head. Sometimes I think books or authors forget that piece of it. They're so consumed with the action of the character that they forget that we want to know, like, oh, what was she thinking, or like what was going through her mind, or how was she feeling in that moment. Sarah does a great job with that. So definitely would recommend it. Of course, all the girlies and TikTok girlies been on the series. I believe it's like 5 or 6 books in the series, and I do plan on reading them all. So, like I said, this particular one I got through it pretty quickly. So I read it back in October. Read it while on the plane going to Paris or whatever. Great read. So I was just like, yes, I'm ready for the second one. My friend at the time, she was already reading the second one, and she was like, yeah, like it, it kind of speeds up, because it did take a minute for this one. It took a minute, a couple of chapters for me to really, dive into it or get into it, because she had to set the scene, right? Set the tone. But thoroughly enjoyed it, so definitely go get it if you can. Sarah J. Maas, A Court of Thorns and Roses. Let me know what you think if you have read it in the comments. And so, moving on to the second one, definitely more in depth, right? We now know who Feyre is. We now know Prithian. We know the courts. We know the High Lords. We know them at this point, right? And so now it gets, or Feyre is put into this dichotomy of sorts, where she's having to choose what part of her that she loves. Like here she was falling in love with this prince, because he protected her, right? He gave her all the things essentially that her daddy wound. She did have daddy issues. Of course, she's going to have daddy issues, right? But um, he fulfilled all of those things, all of those needs that her daddy issues. He was the protector, he was the provider, he was there for her. He gave her the things that she needed. She felt loved and protected. But then she goes through hell, literally. And I'm not going to give it away too much, but literally goes through hell, in the first book in order to save him, his people, the lands, the whole nine. And she reemerges as this new version of herself, okay? And again, not going to give too much away, but reemerges as a newer, different version of herself. And that newer version of herself is broken in places that she's never been broken, right? She had to make some decisions that she never thought she would have to face. She had to come to grips with her new reality, with her newfound look, with her newfound these feelings. Like everything is new for her. So she's starting all over, and it's like, okay, in this new phase of life, is he really the person for me, or can he really fulfill my needs at this point, because I have now been broken? Will he accept me and all of my brokenness? Am I willing to fight through all the things we have to fight through in this brokenness, when he is doing everything in his power to simply protect me, but I just want to be free? And so I think we've all gone through kind of that life dilemma. So that definitely resonated with me. Like, this new person that I am, are you okay with that? I've, gone through some things. I've experienced life. I have a new outlook, a new perception on things. Are you still the person? Like, I still have this love for you, but are you still the person for me in this new way of life? And so that, again, like I said, resonated heavily with me, just because I've gone through my own like journey, rebirth. And you have to, reevaluate, how do you fit into my life now? How do you make me feel now? What are my triggers? All of those things. And, we can dive into that at a later date in real life. But in the book, that's what she's going through, right? Like, she's this new version of her. She got to find herself again. And so she does that with the help of another High Lord. And then, of course, there's like some sexual tension, which there always is, right? When you come into a new space and there's somebody that's in that similar space or understands you in that space, there's this connection that you have. And so they do have this connection, and you'll, dive deeper into that in the book. They have like definitely a real connection that was kind of forced on her. And then they began to grow this true connection where they understand each other, they want to help each other, they want to be there for each other. And they're kind of in their own little world. And so I can definitely, again, relate to that. That resonated heavily with me as far as where I am in my life and walk right now. So again, there were some, little spicy moments here and there. But overall, the second book is definitely more of a builder building blocks. So the first book, really quickly, we find out, she does this, kills this person, goes over here, does all these things, go through hell, come out. So it was a really, again, fast read. You're turning the pages. You don't want to stop. This one, it kind of got a little boring in the middle, kind of about chapter 30-ish, somewhat, where it's just kind of like, okay, they got to do all of these things. And then, you're introduced to a couple of other new courts. She's setting the tone for those courts. Who's here, who's there, what they're like. So a lot of character building in this second book. But I am still super excited about the third book because, like, war is coming, right? The North remembers. But war is coming. And so I'm definitely ready to dive into the third book. So again, this book review was, pretty quick, pretty simple. What I would say is I definitely see why it's a New York Times bestseller. When I got on the plane with it, again, all the girlies are on it. So it's definitely a conversational piece, just if you want to get into reading, like if you're not into reading books or you're not into reading kind of those heavy books, and you want something light, you want something a little fun, a little spicy, and something that can just kind of take you away, right? Like part of reading for me is that I get to go into this fake world or imaginary world or whatever. I get to go into another place outside of like my reality. So it's an outlet for me. So if reading is an outlet for you, you enjoy kind of like fantasy type things, I definitely suggest like go ahead, pick up Sarah J. Maas. I know Amazon has it. Of course, we know Target got it for the girls. Um, Definitely have price books as well. That's why I picked up the second one. So definitely, again, if you're one of the people who buy the whole series at one time, you go for it. But I'll be picking up the third one this week. The third one is titled A Court of Wings and Ruin. And so, like I said, war is coming. So the ruin part, I'm excited about that. But definitely it is a good read. So overall, I'm going to give it, 8 out of 10, because of, like tone, character development, um, and of course, like the little bitty spicy parts that are in there, kept me interested. But again, like I said, if you grew up on Zane and you grew up on Eric Jerome Dickey, this not that. So don't expect that. But do expect it, just a little, okay. Okay. But that's it for tonight, guys. I hope you enjoyed this book review. Let me know what you're reading, so that I can pick those up too and we can start reviewing those. But I'll be back for another bedtime book review next week. See you guys later. Bye.